Through the half-open door of courtroom 7, he could see her, Victoria Langford, the tech billionaire whose face had been plastered across every news channel for 3 months, sitting completely alone at the defendant's table. The overhead fluorescents cast harsh shadows across her hollowed cheekbones, turning her expensive ivory suit into something that looked more like a burial shroud. The janitor's mop hit the marble floor with a wet slap that echoed through the emptying courthouse corridor like a gunshot. Marcus Webb froze mid-stroke, his weathered hands tightening around the wooden handle. The courtroom should have been full. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Friday, and the trial that had captivated the nation was supposed to resume Monday morning. But the gallery sat empty, wooden benches gleaming under the sterile light. No assistants, no advisors, no legal team. Most disturbing of all, no lawyer. No, Marcus had cleaned these halls for 32 years. He'd seen powerful people reduced to tears, watched empires crumble between these walls. But he'd never seen someone abandoned quite like this. Victoria's head was bowed over a stack of documents, her fingers trembling as they traced lines of text she clearly didn't understand. Her phone sat face down on the table, screen dark and silent. Something was wrong. Deeply, dangerously wrong. The prosecution's table, by contrast, was a fortress. 6 attorneys in tailored suits stood clustered together, their voices low and confident. Lead prosecutor Harrison Vance caught Marcus watching and smiled. The kind of smile that made Marcus's stomach turn. It was the smile of a predator that had already tasted blood. Then Victoria looked up, her eyes meeting Marcus's through the doorway. In that single moment of connection, he saw something that would haunt him. Not fear, but the terrible recognition of someone who had just realized they were going to lose everything, and there was no one left to help them. Marcus should have kept walking. Should have finished his route, clocked out, gone home to his 1-bedroom apartment in Queens like he did every night. Instead, he found himself pushing his cleaning cart past the courtroom door, slowing deliberately. "Excuse me, ma'am." His voice came out rougher than intended. "Court's officially closed. You need to—" Victoria's head snapped up, her expression shifting from despair to defensive in a heartbeat. "I have permission to be here. I'm preparing for—" Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, straightened her spine. "I'm fine. Thank you." But she wasn't fine. Marcus could see her hands shaking as she shuffled papers, trying to look purposeful. A yellow legal pad sat before her, covered in frantic handwriting that had been crossed out and rewritten so many times the paper was nearly torn through. "Your attorney coming back?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The question seemed to physically wound her. Victoria's jaw tightened, and for a moment Marcus thought she might cry. Instead, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound that didn't belong to someone who'd been worth $8 billion 3 months ago. "My attorney," she said slowly, "withdrew from my case 2 hours ago, via text message." She held up her phone, screen now illuminated with a message that was brief to the point of cruelty. "Apparently, when your assets are frozen and your reputation is destroyed, loyalty becomes negotiable." Across the room, one of the prosecutors laughed at something his colleague said. The sound carried through the silent courtroom like mockery. Marcus's grip tightened on his mop handle. Something about this entire scene felt staged, orchestrated, like watching someone being circled by wolves while the world looked away. "When's your trial resume?" he asked quietly. "Monday morning, 9 a.m. Victoria's voice was hollow. 72 hours from now. Marcus should have left then, but something made him wheel his cart into the courtroom instead, the wheels squeaking against polished marble. He began wiping down the gallery benches, working his way closer to where Victoria sat. "You know they watch these rooms," he said conversationally, not looking at her. "Security cameras. but they don't record audio unless there's an active session. Victoria's pen stopped moving. She glanced up at him, confusion flickering across her exhausted features. I'm sorry? Just making conversation. Marcus sprayed cleaner on a bench, wiped in slow circles. Been cleaning this courthouse since 1993. You see things, hear things. People forget janitors exist. We're like furniture, invisible. He could feel her studying him now, reassessing. Marcus knew what she saw. A 60-year-old black man in a maintenance uniform, gray threading through his close-cropped hair, the kind of person the wealthy looked past without thinking. What she didn't know was that Marcus Webb had once been someone very different. Langford Technologies versus United States government, Marcus said quietly, still cleaning. They're charging you with corporate espionage, theft of classified AI research, and conspiracy to sell military-grade technology to foreign entities. He paused. Funny thing is, I remember when the government approached your company first, begged you to work with them. That was only 4 years ago. Victoria's chair scraped as she stood abruptly. How do you know that? Like I said, people don't notice janitors. Marcus finally looked at her directly. But I notice things. Like how Harrison Vance, that lead prosecutor over there, used to work for Donovan Security Consulting, the same firm that submitted a rival bid for the Pentagon AI contract your company won. The color drained from Victoria's face. That should have been disclosed. That's a conflict of interest. Should have been, Marcus agreed. Funny how things get buried in discovery, especially when your defense attorney might not have been looking very hard. What are you saying? Marcus set down his spray bottle. When he spoke again, his voice carried an authority that didn't match his uniform. I'm saying your lawyer didn't abandon you because you ran out of money, Ms. Langford. He abandoned you because someone paid him more to walk away. Victoria sank back into her chair, her hands pressed flat against the table to stop their shaking. You're just a janitor. How could you possibly? I used to be a paralegal, Marcus interrupted. 15 years at Morrison, Keller and Associates, one of the best defense firms in New York. His smile was sad. Then I found out they were burying evidence in a pharmaceutical case. Kids were dying. I reported it. They made sure I'd never work in law again. Turns out principals are expensive. The silence between them stretched, heavy with mutual recognition. Two people destroyed by systems more powerful than themselves. Why are you telling me this? Victoria whispered. Marcus looked toward the prosecution table, where Harrison Vance was packing his briefcase, that predatory smile still playing at his lips. Because I've seen this play before, Marcus said, and I know how it ends if someone doesn't intervene. They met in the courthouse basement at 11 p.m. Marcus had texted her the location, Records Room C, where old case files sat in boxes gathering dust, far from security patrols. Victoria arrived looking more disheveled than before, her suit jacket discarded, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She carried a leather bag stuffed with documents and a laptop that had seen better days. Marcus had brought coffee from the bodega down the street. 2 large cups, both black. He slid one across the worn table between them. I didn't know how you took it, he said. Black is perfect. Victoria wrapped both hands around the cup like it was a lifeline. I haven't slept in 43 hours. You won't sleep tonight either. Marcus pulled out a folder he'd been carrying inside his jacket. I've been doing some digging. Your original attorney, Daniel Rothstein, his withdrawal wasn't just about money. He spread documents across the table. Bank transfers, emails he'd pulled from recycling bins in the legal offices upstairs, a photograph of Rothstein meeting with someone at a restaurant. Victoria leaned forward, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Is that Senator Patricia Keene? Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Marcus confirmed. The same committee that initiated the investigation into your company. Rothstein had dinner with her 3 times in the 2 weeks before he dropped your case. Jesus! Victoria's hands trembled as she picked up the photo. This is witness tampering, obstruction, this is exactly what they're accusing you of, Marcus finished. It's textbook projection. Make you the villain so no one looks at them. Victoria let out a shaky laugh that turned into something close to a sob. Why would they do this? My company was helping them. We were developing defensive AI systems, nothing offensive, nothing that could be weaponized. Maybe that was the problem. Marcus pulled out another document, a classified memo he'd found in a prosecutor's trash 3 weeks ago. Your AI was too good, too transparent, made it impossible to hide certain applications that certain defense contractors were very interested in. Victoria read the memo, her face hardening with each line. When she looked up, her eyes had changed. Fear was still there, but now it was joined by something sharper. Anger. They're going to send me to prison, she said quietly. Not because I'm guilty, but because I'm in the way. Not if we can help it. Marcus met her gaze. You've got 70 hours. Let's make them count. Around 2 a.m., Victoria pushed away from the documents and pressed her palms against her eyes. I keep thinking about my partner, Claire. She was my CTO, brilliant engineer, the real genius behind our AI systems. Her voice cracked. She died 6 months ago, car accident on the way home from a Pentagon briefing. Marcus looked up sharply. The police report? Single vehicle collision. They said she fell asleep at the wheel. Victoria's laugh was bitter. Claire never drove tired. She was obsessive about safety. And the week before she died, she told me something was wrong with the government contract, that someone was pressuring her to insert back doors into our code. The basement suddenly felt colder. You think it wasn't an accident, Marcus said carefully. I think she knew too much. Victoria's hands curled into fists, and I think I'm being punished for not dying with her. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a faded photograph. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, grinning at the camera. My daughter Alicia, he said softly. She'd be 32 now if she'd lived. Victoria's breath caught. Marcus, I'm so sorry. The pharmaceutical case I mentioned, the one I blew the whistle on. Marcus's voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. The drug was killing kids, heart defects. Morrison, Keller knew. They had the internal memos proving the company knew about the risks. But there was too much money involved. Too many powerful people invested. He traced the edge of the photograph. Alicia was prescribed that medication for her asthma. She died 3 weeks before I found the buried evidence. I thought I was saving other children by coming forward. Instead, the firm destroyed me. The case got settled quietly with an NDA, and the drug stayed on the market another 2 years. My God, Victoria whispered. They didn't just take my career, Marcus continued. They made sure I couldn't afford the lawyers to sue, made sure no one would hire me. I lost my house, my marriage, everything. He looked at her directly. So, when I see someone being systematically destroyed by people with power, I recognize the playbook. And I won't, watch it happen again and do nothing. Victoria wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. We're both ghosts, aren't we? People they tried to erase. Maybe, Marcus said, but ghosts can still fight back. The fluorescent lights flickered once, then died completely. Marcus was on his feet instantly, instinct overriding exhaustion. That's not normal. Emergency power should kick in. It didn't. In the absolute darkness of the windowless basement, Victoria's breathing grew rapid. Marcus? Stay still. He moved by memory toward where he'd left his phone. His fingers found the edge of the table, swept across papers. Then he heard it. Footsteps. multiple sets, coming down the stairs. "We need to go, now." Marcus grabbed Victoria's arm, pulled her toward the back exit he'd used for 30 years, the door that led to the maintenance tunnels, the one that wasn't on any official blueprint. They'd made it halfway across the room when the footsteps stopped. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the table where they'd been working. "Gone," a male voice said. "Not security. Wrong tone, wrong cadence." "Documents are still here." "Take everything," a second voice ordered. "Phones, laptops, anything digital. Make it look like standard maintenance disposal." Marcus's blood turned to ice. He recognized that second voice. Daniel Rothstein, Victoria's former attorney. Victoria must have recognized it too because her entire body went rigid. Marcus tightened his grip on her arm, silently willing her to stay quiet. "What about Webb?" the first voice asked. "He's a problem," Rothstein said coldly. "A janitor who knows too much. There are ways to handle that. Make it look like his heart gave out. He's old, no family, nobody will question it." The flashlight beam swung toward their hiding spot behind a filing cabinet. "Senator Keene wants this contained before Monday," Rothstein continued. "The trial needs to go forward exactly as planned. Langford goes down, the technology gets seized as evidence, and DSC gets the Pentagon contract. Simple." The beam was 3 feet away. 2 feet. 2 feet. Marcus's hand found the fire alarm on the wall. He yanked it hard. The alarm's shriek was deafening. Emergency lights blazed to life, bathing everything in pulsing red. Marcus shoved Victoria toward the maintenance tunnel. "Go, follow the yellow pipes. They lead to the parking garage." "I'm not leaving you." "They want you in prison. They want me dead. We split up. We both have a chance." A hand grabbed Marcus's shoulder, spun him around. The first man, thick-necked, ex-military build, drove a fist toward his ribs. Marcus twisted, took the blow on his hip instead, pain exploding through old joints. He wasn't young anymore, wasn't trained for this. Victoria screamed, swung her laptop bag like a weapon. It connected with the man's head, bought them 3 seconds. Rothstein was blocking the tunnel entrance now, gun drawn. Not standard courthouse carry. This was premeditated. Planned. "You stupid, stubborn..." Rothstein's face was twisted with fury. "You could have just kept mopping floors, Marcus, but no, you had to play hero." The ex-military man was recovering, reaching inside his jacket. Marcus's mind raced. 32 years in this building. He knew every inch, every flaw, the sprinkler system. His eyes found the thermal sensor above Rothstein's head. Marcus grabbed Victoria's still steaming coffee cup from the table and hurled it upward. The hot liquid hit the sensor. Water exploded from every sprinkler head in the basement. In the chaos, alarms screaming, water cascading, emergency lights strobing. Marcus grabbed Victoria's hand and ran. Not toward the tunnel. Toward the stairs. Up, not down. Toward the one place they might find witnesses. The courthouse lobby. Behind them, Rothstein was shouting into a phone. "Contain this now, I don't care what it takes." They burst through the stairwell door into the main hall. Empty. 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The security desk unmanned. Victoria was sobbing now, makeup streaked, soaked through. "There's nowhere to go. They're going to kill us. They're going to..." "No," Marcus gasped, pulling her toward the front entrance. "They're going to regret this." He smashed the glass on the emergency box and grabbed what was inside. Not a fire extinguisher. The master key to every courtroom in the building. Marcus unlocked courtroom 3, the one with the upgraded security system installed last year. The one that recorded everything, audio and video, 24 hours a day. The footage streamed directly to the federal courthouse security mainframe, backed up in real time to servers the county couldn't touch. "What are we doing?" Victoria's voice shook. "Making a record." Marcus positioned them both in clear view of the camera. They wanted to erase us in the dark. We're going to tell our story in the light. He pulled out his phone, hands still trembling from adrenaline, and opened the voice recorder. Then he looked directly at the camera. My name is Marcus Webb. It's 3:17 a.m. Saturday morning. This is my testimony regarding the conspiracy to frame Victoria Langford and obstruct justice in case number CR 2024-8847. He spoke for 6 minutes. Every detail. Rothstein's meetings with Senator Keene, the classified memo, Claire's convenient death, the attempted murder he and Victoria had just escaped. When he finished, Victoria stepped forward. Her fear had transformed into something harder. Focused. My name is Victoria Langford. What Marcus said is true. I have additional evidence stored in an encrypted cloud account. She recited the access credentials slowly, clearly. The files include communications between Senator Keene, Donovan Security Consulting executives, and Pentagon officials discussing the seizure and redistribution of my company's AI technology. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from a number he hadn't seen in 15 years. Watching the courthouse security feed. I'm on my way. Judge Sarah Chen. His breath caught. Sarah Chen. The judge who'd ruled against Morrison, Keller after Marcus's whistleblowing. The one who'd believed him when no one else would. Marcus? Victoria saw his expression change. He showed her the text. We're not alone anymore. Below them they could hear doors slamming, voices. But now those sounds felt different. They weren't being hunted. They were being heard. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Courtroom 7. This time, the gallery was packed. FBI agents lined the back wall. 3 federal judges sat in observation. And at the prosecution table, Harrison Vance looked like a man watching his career implode in real time. Victoria sat at the defendant's table again. But she wasn't alone. Marcus sat beside her. Not as a janitor, but as a witness. Judge Sarah Chen had spent Saturday pulling strings, making calls, assembling a team of Justice Department lawyers who'd been investigating Donovan Security Consulting for years. They'd just needed the missing piece. Victoria had given them everything. Daniel Rothstein sat in the gallery now, in handcuffs, flanked by federal marshals. His face was gray. Senator Keene had resigned that morning via a terse press release. The ex-military man who'd attacked them had been arrested at the airport trying to flee to Venezuela. Judge Martin Hendricks, who'd been assigned to Victoria's case, looked older than his 60 years as he reviewed the evidence compiled over 48 sleepless hours. Mr. Vance, the judge said quietly, approach the bench. The whispered conversation lasted 3 minutes. When Vance returned to his table, his hands were shaking. Your Honor, Vance's voice barely carried. The United States moves to dismiss all charges against Ms. Langford with prejudice. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for the doors. Victoria's shoulders collapsed as if strings had been cut, tears streaming silently down her face. Judge Hendricks banged his gavel. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the Attorney General for investigation of prosecutorial misconduct, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. This court is adjourned. As the room cleared, Victoria turned to Marcus. No words seemed adequate. Instead, she simply took his weathered hand in both of hers and held on. Through the window, the morning sun cut through the courthouse with sharp, clean light. Finally, light. 6 months later, the office still smelled like fresh paint. Marcus stood in the doorway of the converted brownstone in Brooklyn, watching Victoria argue passionately with a young woman whose startup had been targeted by a predatory acquisition. The space was modest, nothing like Langford Technologies' former glass tower, but it was theirs. The Transparency Project. That's what they'd named it. a non-profit legal defense fund for innovators and whistleblowers crushed by corporate machinery. Victoria had liquidated what remained of her unfrozen assets to fund it. Marcus had contributed something more valuable, 3 decades of knowledge about how the system really worked, and a Rolodex of contacts who remembered when he'd been someone worth knowing. They'd helped 12 cases so far. Won 8. The others were still fighting. "Marcus," Victoria called, "can you look at this contract? Something feels off in Section 7. He smiled, grabbing his reading glasses. Not a paralegal anymore. They'd made him general counsel. His law license had been quietly reinstated last month after Judge Chen filed a formal petition detailing his wrongful blacklisting. 15 years erased with a signature. The young entrepreneur looked up as Marcus approached, hope and desperation warring in her expression. He recognized that look. Had seen it in a mirror once, had seen it on Victoria's face in an empty courtroom on a Friday afternoon that felt like a lifetime ago. "Let's see what we're working with," Marcus said gently, settling into the chair beside her. Outside, Brooklyn moved through an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The elevated train rattled past. A vendor sold coffee on the corner. Life continued in all its messy, imperfect glory. But inside that brownstone office, beneath fluorescent lights that no longer felt harsh, 3 people bent over a contract and prepared to fight for something that should never have required fighting for in the first place. Justice wasn't always delivered in courtrooms. Sometimes it was rebuilt, one case at a time, by people who refused to stay erased.